So whenever I go to a new client or a new organization, everyone is saying, I want my team to be self-organized. I don't want to do anything anymore. I just want to see them flourish and everything is nice and shiny. So that's what most of the people do. And in 90% of the cases, they fail. And after a while, they have chaos, they're frustrated, they don't like the buzzword anymore and say, I rather want to be a servant leader, or I want to be a modern manager, whatsoever. So they find a new buzzword they can use and then probably fail at that one. Anyway, we want to tackle 4 major questions today in the next, still 28 minutes, I would say. What is self-organization? So if it's a buzzword everyone is using, let's briefly talk about it. Then we will talk about what capabilities enable self-organization. So what capabilities do you need in your organization as a leader, as a person, to actually be successful in it? And we sneak the word leader into the title, which makes it more tangible for everyone. So let's talk about leadership. What is a leader? What is a self-organized leader? And at the end, and I'm from Germany, I'm quite familiar with these kind of systems, we will talk about hierarchical systems. How do you enable self-organization in a hierarchical system? But as I said before, let's start with the first question. So who of you thinks he or she is a self-organized person? Just raise your hand. 1, 2. Yes. Are you a self-organized person? Yeah. Okay, good. So 2 or 3 people, maybe even 5, raised their hand, which makes me curious. What is self-organization for you? Can someone just stand up for a brief second and say, what is self-organization for you? Ideally, someone who raised their hand, because if not, it gets a little bit. No one?
Low maintenance for yourself, whoever you work with.
Yeah, low maintenance for yourself and whoever you work with. That's a great start. So this means, again, manager like this kind of phrase, low maintenance, low cost, not that much to do. So that's why it resonates so good. But there's a definition to it I shortly want to dive into with you. So self-organization is a process where a system spontaneously increases in complexity and forms orderly structures without external guidance. Broke my tongue twice while I was saying that. But what does it mean? So what does it mean for you? So what do you think it's behind it? Do you have an idea? I see some eyebrows twitching, so still fighting with the definition. So in a nutshell, to keep it really simple, that's how I translate this definition by the Harvard Business Review. They may be overdone it a little bit. Is a system changes by itself. The circumstances change and they change by themselves. So that's the idea. This is what they do. And everyone will say, yeah, well, that's easy. I just allow my team to change and everything is great. But as I said, quite often it ends like this. Someone is frustrated, everything is in panic and chaos, nothing's working. So let's get then back to what is self-organization. So what do we want to do? Let's take the most important thing for a lot of people as an example, kids. You go with your kid to the playground. Let's say there's a sandbox, and you say to your child, you can play in that sandbox, but please don't leave that sandbox. Stay in that sandbox. What will the kid do in that sandbox? Go out, yes. What else will it do? Play. But what does play mean? Is it building a castle, just running around, jumping? It's up to him. So in this sandbox, the kid will do whatever it wants to do without ideally hurting other kids. This is a little bit of a guidance you can give to the child. Don't hit the other kid with the shovel. But rather than just applying a lot of rules, what works best with the kid is saying, stay in that sandbox. Here's some toys. Here are tools. Here's a shuffle. Here's a wheel. Here's whatever. And the kid will play normally, as long as it's not bored or something was more attractive to it. So rather than implementing a bunch of rules on that kid, what do? We provide guidance. But instead of learning from that example, What do we do in the most of the organizations? Great, another process description, a code of coding, a really strict guideline what you need to do. So rather than fostering rules, foster guidance. Provide this frame. Because what is self-organization? It's enabling an individual or in a group of people to act in a given frame. So let's take another example. Who likes jazz? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Guido is nodding because the example actually comes from him. Also, jazz is nothing without a guidance. There is something because the musicians want to interact with each other. And that's the same what you need to create in an organization to foster self-organization. There's a little bit of guidance, a little bit of common understanding, which ensures that this case, not the kids. Sometimes people behave like that, but they're not kids. They have a common understanding. They have a common frame. They have a common thing they will do. And this is how you foster self-organization in a group. You ensure that they have a certain frame. So what are kind of capabilities do you need to keep them in this frame, in this guidance? Because as you said, sometimes the kid runs out of the playground. You want to avoid that. So the first thing you need to create is a common goal. Now everyone would directly say, yeah, well, I have a vision, I have a North Star, easy. Well, great, but a company vision is quite often too far away for one particular team or department. Let's think about big corporate organizations. They have thousands of employees. They have thousands of teams of things they want to do. So just one vision and hoping that it keeps the kid in a sandbox will not work. So you need to define a common goal for a predefined domain. What can a domain be? A domain can be a product. A domain can be your website. A domain can be your app you want to develop. It can also be a new car. So a common goal, what is the next model of our car? But this domain needs to be clarified because people want to belong. And by creating this domain, the people belong to something. If you just say, yeah, your goal is now to fix that car. Okay, I'm a mechanic, am I a software engineer? What am I? They want to have a connection. They want also connection to the team. Because you only can connect this team if the domain is defined. They know where they belong to. And they then also know what this team will do. Because a group of people without a common goal is just a group of people which runs in different direction. Does this make sense for everyone? I see a lot of nodding. Good. So what do we have now? We have a common goal for a group of people. We have a defined domain so they know to what they belong. But we still need to structure ourselves a little bit, right? Because if we just have 10 people and 10 people try to lift the box, yes, we hopefully lift the box, but it gets really complicated because 10 hands, 1 box, that doesn't really work. So you need roles. But by a role, I don't mean, Evelyn, you are the manager. That's not what I want. With roles, I mean, who is doing what? It's like a household. Who is picking the kids up? Hopefully this is agreed up front, because if not, the kid might stay at the kindergarten. The same as who's doing groceries and these kind of stuff. And all these chores or these to-dos don't need to be permanent. So also a role doesn't need to be permanent for a team. So they don't need the stability over years to do always the same. But the group needs to have a common understanding who is doing what. And not to yell at someone and pinpoint at him. It's just, yeah, well, bugs always go to Joe. Joe will take a first look and then it goes to the rest of the team. And maybe, and this is then the second thing, events, rituals, these things can change, can adapt over time. The team has the freedom of doing so, which means that, okay, for this quarter it's Joe, next quarter it's Tom, so me, next quarter is someone else. But these needs to be defined. These events need to be in place. So if this is so easy, why we are not doing it every time and every day? Because the team, the group, the set of people needs the freedom of doing so. And quite often there's an ecosystem around them, sometimes just one manager, sometimes a group of people, who is not allowing that. They interfere. They grab someone and say, you are the manager. You are responsible. I don't care if someone else needs to do it. You are responsible. because they want to have one person to yell at instead of a group. It's easier. It also focuses the anger a little bit better. So this is what you need to avoid. And now we get to the point, how do you need to change as a leader? Because as a leader, I already gave you some hints along the way what you shouldn't do. So if you listen carefully, you already have a list. So you don't pinpoint a person. So as a leader, you enable this domain, this frame to flourish. And you're not scared about the fact that the team or the group of people is doing something in that frame. God forbid, if they have a goal, for example, to fix the car, they will start to fix the car. You might want them to take the wheel off, check behind the wheel what's in it. They maybe open the trunk and check what's with the trunk. Well, let them do that. Let them experiment. Let them also test the waters. But this is not happening from today to tomorrow. This is not happening immediately. This takes time. I had a discussion 2 weeks ago with one of the servant leaders at one of my clients. They said, I gave them 2 days to test something. They haven't done it. Yeah, well, maybe you give them a little bit more time. Because what did you do before you allowed them to do it? I always checked it. I always checked it every day. So you create no psychological safety. They are scared. They are scared of doing something wrong because you are not leading by example. So you provide them with the autonomy to do things, and you make this crystal clear as a person, as a leader. This is your frame. In this frame, you can do whatever you want as long as it's chipping into our common goal. And the common goal is nothing which chips into your salary. A common goal is something which drives this group of people. And ideally, what you could do, or what you should do, ideally, is have a meeting, a workshop, an event with them together to create this goal. Because a group of people will not sit down and wait, dear God, please give us a goal. They want to define it. They want to tune it. They want to be interactive with it, because at the end, normally this group of people has a set of knowledge you don't have. I mean, if you can be as intelligent than 20 people, you might don't need the team. So involve them to define your common goal, to then, in your frame, achieve this goal. Okay, so 2 things you can do. Help them to define your common goal, set up the frame. Done. Team is self-organizing, lay back, manager life is great, you get results every other week. Well, as I said, companies are big, or ecosystems are diverse, so things will change, things will happen. What is your job as a leader then? Protect your system. So whatever wants to interfere with the frame you have created, take care of it. So maybe talk to the other manager and say, don't touch my team, leave it alone. We all think about product ownership and how the product owner defends the team from the client requests. It's the same with your system. So as a manager, what starts to happen, instead of taking care of your team because they are self-organized and have the freedom to do things you need, you start talking to everyone else, leave them alone. And that quite often doesn't happen, because what a typical manager, in my experience, will do, talk to my team. Let them not talk to your team. Get crystal clear what the person or the system wants from them, and if it's interfering with your common goal and the domain you have created. Because every interference is disruption. Every disruption lowers your productivity. And this is what you want to avoid. So protecting the system. The other thing is that, yes, ideally we would like to have employees forever. They start, they stay for 30 years, and they never leave. That would be great. This is what we are hoping for. But that's not the case. People leave. So whatever you have created needs to be flourished, needs to be taken care of. It's like a little flower. Yeah? If you don't water it, it dies. So this is what you need to do as a leader. So is the domain still right? Do we still work in the right direction with our goal? Is the group still working well together? So all these kind of questions, this is something you need to take care of as a leader to really foster this self-organization, because maybe at a certain point in time, let's come back to our child, the child gets bored. So the sandbox, built a castle, had a wheel, have a river, not fun anymore. And this can happen with your team. So Then you need to talk to your team. What makes you tick? What makes you think? What do you like? Do we need to change the domain? Do you want to do something else as a person, as a group? Do we need a different goal because we achieved what we wanted to do? We are first in market with e-commerce on e-mobility. I don't know. It can happen. I mean, the team will achieve something ideally, and also your goal shouldn't be something they never can achieve, because that's also boring. If you always run and never finish. And see the life as a leader in this kind of setting kind of stressful, because a lot of things you need to do. It's not laying back and not doing anything. But if you do that, your team can really achieve the things you want them to achieve. Another thing which can up is that probably they have a problem. So at a certain point in time, let's take your kid again. It's playing totally fine, but something is happening. It's running to you. It wants help. What would you never do? Send it away, right? So I didn't have seen parents yet to say, no, you go back and play. It's not my issue here. So managers do that. Managers say to your team, well, that's not my issue. You need to solve it. I hired you to solve it. But if they come to you, they have an impediment they cannot get rid of. So why not helping them? And here, it's a good indicator I quite often use in organizations is how fast the management can get rid of an impediment. Because this shows how much priority they give into it. If the impediment sits on the shelf for months, well, what will the team do? Yeah, they don't care about us. Maybe it takes months to fix, but they didn't communicate it. Then we are back to good communication. But quite often it is because they don't spend a time or the effort which would be relevant to actually make it happen. So again, one of my clients, they said, well, we try to remove impediments as soon as possible. Well, that's a great sentence. As soon as possible means what? Next week, 2 months, whatsoever. Yesterday. That's what we hope. And what happens really? It takes a while. So if you remove impediments for your ecosystem, for your little flower you have created, make transparent how long you need. You're just a human and not, I will do it ASAP. But by the way, next week I'm on vacation, then I have a leadership conference, then I need to go somewhere else. Do it by yourself, by the way. If they come to you with a problem statement, listen to them, take care of that problem statement, and normally if you're an enabled leader, you should be also capable of getting rid of it quite soon. If not, well, go to the next in chain, which also brings us to hierarchical systems. Great bridge. So how do you enable this in a hierarchical system? And now I talk for nearly 20 minutes, stop talking. What do you think? How do you enable it? I talked a lot about self-organization. What do you do with people and teams? How would you enable it? Not so many answers at the same time. Yes? Recurring meetings, yeah. To go upstage, yes. What else? Yeah.
Ensuring that the segregation of concerns between the layers and teams is clear, so they can organize it in their own domain, instead of being mismanaged by somebody who is not actually involved in the product.
Yeah, that's good. What else?
Except the fact that the hierarchy might just be in the minds of people, legacy of culture today, and you are able to change the culture as a team.
Exactly. So if you do it in a hierarchical system, unfortunately you need to start from the bottom, because at a certain layer you can create this first domain, and then you can experience, is a domain big enough or small enough. So you as a person, as a team member, you can start from the bottom, but the biggest challenge you then have is to convince your leader. So involve them and show them what are the benefits if you actually do it bottom up. Quite often what I also see is, let's do it top down. Here are my 5 domains. I like them. This is how I want to have it. It doesn't work, because even a CEO normally doesn't know what is the best structure down to the smallest piece. So that needs to match. So the domains need to come from the bottom and always need to chip in into a common vision. So hopefully we have a vision. And then also everyone in this hierarchical ladder needs to support the change. So first, and now I stick to a team member, convince your team manager. Then the team manager needs to convince, so it needs to go up, and then it goes down again. Is this something that changes overnight? No. But if you do it bottom up, you can create clear domains. And what I also have seen of a lot of organizations, domains can merge. At a certain point in time, you will recognize that a domain, that the frame has similarity to another frame. Or, and this is also great feedback of a team, I like the other frame better. Can we merge with them because it creates benefits to achieve our goal? And these kind of interaction you need to foster because they see dependencies you definitely don't see. And even that, if you do it over time, and that's why I picked this picture, I like it, this untangling, that takes time. And even over time, you maybe never reach the end, but step by step it will get easier. And you need to start again, but why not? If the team comes up with a new solution, again, fostering your flower, then you take them into account. So, what are the key takeaways? Guidance over rules. So a rule is strict. A rule is something which is set in stone. A guidance is something which you can allow the team to challenge, right? Simple as it is, it works quite well. If you say, this is your guidance, and by the way, the Dutch people are really good in guidance, just allowing them to follow as long as they care about it. Manage the system, not the people. Stop managing your team. Manage the frame they are in. Take care of this frame. Take care of their domain. Protect them. Protect the ecosystem you created because you have the power, hopefully, to do so. And the most important thing at the end, create them a common goal with them together. And not, these are my personal goals. If you achieve this, I get my big bonus at the end of a year. I had a meeting once, and it was a funny guy. He was really nice. He had a picture. He said, well, if you are working well, I get a second Ferrari. He tried to be funny, but it didn't land it that well. So don't do that. Really create a goal together. And that's already it. So it is simple on paper. It's hard to achieve because you need to let go. And this let go, as I stick with my example, I have the experience it lands really well. If your child wants to learn walking, you cannot hold it the whole time. Sometimes you need to let it go. And it will fall. And it will fall again. But it will learn walking over time. And now I think we have time for questions. Thank you.